Ari, Merry Christmas, humbug my arse, bastard. Let's attack in the style of SeaWorld with this Amazing Spider-Man SeaWorld Attacks tie-in. This is Amazing Spider-Man Annual 23 from 1989. And I went into this thinking, oh, we'll have a fun time, because this one, more than any other SeaWorld Attacks chapter, this manages to incorporate the most pieces of the overall plot. Plenty to talk about there. And then I remembered who drew it. Our cover is a mercy, however. The cover is Jason Byrne, which I didn't clock immediately. Other than the lack of a background and Abomination Man looking a bit under-rendered, it's a good cover, honestly. I would guess She-Hulk's appearance would be why Jason Byrne was chosen to draw this. Although he does plenty of SeaWorld Attacks covers, and even interior art. I've been trying to avoid opening it because we are greeted with an image that lets you know what we are in for. Our main story is penciled by Robert Liefeld, and I don't like talking about Robert Liefeld because, much like Michael Bryan Benson, I feel exhausted on the topic. I have barely touched on Robert Liefeld. I don't feel there is much worth talking about there. Everyone else has said almost everything that needs to be said. I'm not going to mention the feat once in this comic even. What I want to announce though is, a few weeks ago, I pondered who could be the best Spider-Man artist, because all the best ones have at some point drawn a bad Spider-Man story. I have got the reverse for you. I don't like to throw around hyperbole like this, but I can tell you the worst Spider-Man artist is Robert Liefeld. His Spider-Man has always unnerved me because it looks so improper. Robert Liefeld didn't draw Spider-Man much. I think just this and an excellent fourth story. But the thing is, his Spider-Man looks like a freak. His Spider-Man always has the hind legs of a dog. His head and chest are always able to contort themselves in subhuman ways. I don't like it. It's again that feel of it looking like an off-brand parody version of Spider-Man or something. Talking about the story is a shame. We have a plot by Gerry Conway with a script by David Michelinie. And it is a decent story and writing, but the art and its badness for telling a story take all the attention away from things. We have Desard, one of our main villains in SeaWorld Attacks. And on the second page, we have some impressively bad Robert Liefeld. I don't want to talk about the typical Robert Liefeld things. What I want to focus on is Robert Liefeld can draw. He can't draw very well, but he can draw. What he can't do, what he never learned, was the importance of storytelling through artwork. This is chock full of these sort of mistakes. Our first one is Desard is contacted by Ursula on a giant monitor screen. At no point before this is a monitor screen present or established as part of the scene. We do actually see it in the one panel before Ursula shows up on it, but you would not recognise it as such. To quickly say, Desard and Ursula, they are our main villains of SeaWorld Attacks. They are conspiring to bring forth the banished elder god Set. They want to bring Set back to Earth and usher in a new age of evil. This issue sets up a few of their goals and objectives even. This bit with the screen is small change in comparison to some of the dreadful examples of Robert Liefeld not expositing through his arse. Here we have Spider-Man. I will again mention Robert Liefeld seems to like drawing men's butts. Without fail, he will always sneak them into his cool comics. Look at Spider-Man's buns on the first image on this page. Tight, tight, tight. We have more disaster here. Mary James shows up and she and Cat Grant look like they go to the same novelty wig store. Mary James then, sadly, breaks her neck while hugging Peter Parker. R.I.P. Mary James. Poor Spider-Man's girlfriends keep snapping their necks by accident. But here is one of my chief complaints. We have half a dozen characters in this scene. This has been set up extremely poorly by Robert Liefeld. But even worse is the pacing of his art. There are 7 images on this page. This page also contains 2 big plot points, one of which is Abomination Man, who is introduced via a news report on one of the tiniest panels of the page. On a TV screen that, like before, is absent from most of the panels where it is not in use. We also introduce She-Hulk, who is our co-star. This could have been a fun team-up story, but we have dreadful art. The top panel here is nothing. It is a quiet downtime moment. Why is it given more space than important panels? Trust me, it might seem a very flimsy and nitpicky criticism, but as the comic progresses, it becomes very, very troublesome to the script and what is happening. Ursula has teamed up with Abomination Man now. She broke him out of jail to serve her and Desard. Ursula seems to love joining forces with random villains she should be considering below her. I don't know if I can blame Robert Liefeld for this. An editor should have corrected him. But he draws all the henchmen looking like Desard. Desard isn't one of them. Desard is a new god. He is one of a kind. That is the whole point of the new gods on Apocalypse. They are unique mutations each. But all the servants look exactly like Desard. We also again see the scene here in weird ways, but we have the scene established to us by the 5th and final panel here. We see who is there, and then on the next page, Desard is there. He wasn't mentioned or seen on the previous page. Even the opening sequence, that first scene, never implied Desard was going to join Ursula. I'll distract myself by explaining some of the plot. Abomination Man, at this point, has a setup I know about, but I never knew why or when. Abomination Man and the villain, Tyrannomon, the Hulk villain, Tyrannomon, they swapped bodies. I mainly know about it from Andy books and I think West Coast Avengers 25. And maybe Avengers Spotlight. Robert the subscriber can clarify if it was Tyrannomon as Abomination in both of those. He loves those books. And this is actually resolving this. it's restoring the status quo, but it's nice to see something important happening with regards to continuity. We also have another neat continuity thing, in that Desard and Ursula, they are exploiting the leftover power lines that used to run into Avengers' house. The Avengers had heavy-duty power lines because they required more power than normal. And then the idiots didn't bother to contact the power company after their house was destroyed and relocated. Our two heroes began to investigate the electric booms. And here we have Tyrannomon and Abomination Man restored to their proper bodies. Ursula takes Tyrannomon away, and Tyrannomon goes on to feature a bit more in SeaWorld Attacks after this issue. But like with a lot of ideas in SeaWorld Attacks, doesn't really matter. Abomination Man now goes on a rampage. He isn't happy about being a monster again. And here, this Spider-Man, the main panel, it's horrible. Absolutely horrible. I will excuse some Robert Liefeldman. Some Robert Liefeldman, while technically bad, was either successful in getting an idea across, or at least acceptable. Some of his New Muties covers, I recognise the usual Liefeldmanisms, but I can give them a pass. He manages to execute an image with them in terms of layout or design. You can give it a pass. This whole image, not just Spider-Man, although he is the worst part of it, it's awful. There's no background. She-Hulk is charging like a rhino. It's fucking horrible. And now we are back to the bad storytelling. Double whammy of awful right here. We see Desard escaping on his flying vehicle. You can clearly see he is by himself on it. We will come back to that in a few pages. Desard is smitten with She-Hulk and wants to make her one of the chosen brides of Set. I think this is the introduction of this idea for the crossover. It will factor in later in the story, particularly in the Extra Factor and West Coast Avengers chapters. The bigger thing is Abomination Man breaks a wall on top of himself and the heroes. This isn't told that well by the art. It relies on Spider-Man thinking to himself that they are about to be crushed by a crumbling wall. But this is where my main thing about Robert Liefeldman telling a story is coming into play. I mentioned it before with the pacing. With him, the big moment will be small, and the small moment will be half a page. The building falling on top of them is a panel at the top of this page. When I was reading this, I didn't think it was that important. And then we spend the next 4 or 5 pages dealing with the aftermath of the building falling on top of them and seeing characters react to a building falling down. I know I keep saying so, but we get even more tremendous examples of it later. Crash Thompson is in the scene now, but there is an odd thing here. The top panel, She-Hulk is surrounded by a random field of energy. There is no reference in the script to this anywhere, and it is only this panel. In the Extra Factor annual, We see Desard use powers like this, and so I assume, the minute I saw it, I assumed the idea was Desard used his power to protect She-Hulks from the collapsing building. It's not mentioned, it's not acknowledged. It made me think that maybe this comic was written and then handed to Robert Liefeld, and he did all this bad art, and they had to re-edit or rewrite the script because of the artwork. Like, remove all the text, look at the image selection we have. The one panel where he draws the energy outline, how do you acknowledge that in writing with these images beyond very clunky style dialogue where Crash Thompson goes, "What is that force surrounding you?" And then She-Hulk goes, "What force? Oh, it is gone now." And after this we have another fine example of bad fucking layouts. 5 panels here, 5 very narrow panels, and they all say almost nothing. I thought I would take a second here to posit some artists who could have drawn this instead. Martin Bagels is the obvious choice. He was soon to be the main artist on Amazing Spider-Man. He did the previous year's annual. He does a backup in this. And he does some other parts of SeaWorld Attacks. And the saga of the Serpent Act backups across all the crossover. Ron Lee wasn't being overworked yet. I reckon he could have put in a good effort with this. And he does later do a lot of Spider-Man. I don't want to say anything a bit presumptuous like Joey Mental. I think it's too early for him anyway. Maybe Greg Batman though. I think he was doing what ifs at this point. Although I think this would mean an incredibly different career path for him, and the likelihood of Kazar being cancelled early. Bethany Belieber was free. I think his run on New Mutants was done with. Get him to draw this, that would be good. He'd be wonderful at making Desard look creepy and weird. Michael Mann from Kazar. This was before Kazar. I think he would be free to do this. Well, the thing is, basically 96% of artists are better for this than what we got. The next bit is one of those moments where the impact of things isn't obvious because he makes it seem insignificant, like the building falling on top of them. Here we have Abomination Man defeating She-Hulks. The panel of him defeating her is given the same space as 2 panels before it of casual punching back and forth. This is meant to be a big hit. We're meant to feel this. And it is treated like nothing by Robert Liefeld. He doesn't understand how to present a single thing through his artwork. Over here, Desard arrives. Now, he is joined by 2 servants on his vehicle. Another thing is the setting is baffling. How can Desard walk up the She-Hulks without Spider-Man or Abomination Man noticing? Anyway, Desard gives her the mark of Seth. She is the first of the brides to be marked, I believe. Gather now, ye 7 brides. The 7 brides are Storm, She-Hulks, Coke from Coke and Pepsi, who I'm pretty sure is underage, Charlotte Witch, Phoenix, Cena, Warrior Princess from Peter Gilbert's final issues of Defenders, and Invisible Wife. The last one is the clear winner. I mean, she has wife in her name. All we have left of this story now, though, is more failure to communicate ideas. We have this bit where Spider-Man hits Abomination Man with everything he has. It's meant to be the killing blow, and it doesn't look it because, again, the art minimises it and makes it look less important. But in this case, it is a joke. The joke being that it didn't work. Spider-Man's best did nothing. The joke doesn't land because of Robert Liefeld's art. And then, this page is what we have been waiting for. Nothing exemplifies what I am saying about Robert Liefeld and storytelling and pacing and significance. We have She-Hulk's throw an oil truck at Abomination Man. It explodes and he catches fire. He comes out on fire, still trying to attack. He then falls off the bridge. They're on a bridge apparently. And his flaming body crashes into a boat. And then the boat explodes. These are all given tiny panels, these huge explosions, this action, while She-Hulk's, her demented, ugly grin is given the big panel. Everything on this page is an abomination of storytelling. Also, is this why Abomination Man's face is scarred in the Master Edition of the Andy books? Our final page has Madame Hydra's, and even that is made to seem like it doesn't matter. Backups include a retelling of Spider-Man's origin by Gary Conman and Martin Bagels. I want to focus on how nice the art is and how attractive he makes Liz Allen. Why couldn't this be the art for the main story? We all know Spider-Man's origin though, so I'm not overly focusing on this. There are two other backups that I do want to discuss instead of this. We have this Tom Falcon and Ron French. It is another remake of the backup feature from the very first Spider-Man annual from the Silver Age. Aunt Tomei and Nick Katzenberg in Standards of Behaviour. No doubt Robert the subscriber loves this tale. What I want to get to though is Fred fucking Hembeck. Love me some M. We have Spider-Man's top 30 villains. And before we talk about that, even Fred Hembeck would have been better than Robert Liefeld. Fred Hembeck at least recognises his art and its style. I talk a lot about the fake fanboy creators and whatnot, but with Fred Hembeck, he is the purest of fan. It all counts to him. He's not snidely criticising a character from the 90s. You might joke about them, sure, but he's not bashing them. Fred Hembeck truly does believe that Human Fly is the 21st best Spider-Man villain. And that is great. All I would say about this is that I think Mr. Doom is placed far too high. He is placed on stature as a villain, rather than as a Spider-Man villain. Not much else to disagree with here, though. We have another Fred Hembeck masterwork. This is a recap of J.K. Jonah Jameson history, and we get another appearance of Human Fly. I do think Fred Hembeck is why the Human Fly was killed by Scourge, though. The garbage eating, I think that did him in. And then we have our final story, which is Chapter 4 of the Saga of the Serpent Art. And this covers some incredibly important Marvel mythology. The sinking of SeaWorld. Well, I cannot recommend this, can I? I reckon the main story could have been quite decent with someone else drawing it. It's not that I even hate Robert Liefeldman's style or how he draws things. I don't like it either, though. But the problem is, he is drawing. He's not telling a story. He's just drawing things. He never learnt the principles of visual storytelling. He never sets a scene up clearly for a reader. Characters wander in without us understanding from where. Things happen, but the art doesn't highlight it to the degree that it should. I know how I've got to end this, though, very obviously. I've got to give it 7 brides up.